All right, welcome to the Clown World podcast. This is our first podcast. The topics today are going to be the verdict, and we're going to dive in a little bit to the Columbus, Ohio shooting that happened yesterday. I myself am the sergeant, and I've got the Queen Hera along here with me. Hera, how are you doing today?
I am swell, Sergeant. I'm swell and ready to go.
Wonderful, wonderful. Do you want to kick this off, or you want me to kick it off?
I mean, you kind of already have, but yeah, we can just go ahead and dive right in. So obviously, when we're talking about the verdict, I'm pretty sure everybody around the entire world knows what we're talking about, because yesterday, Tuesday, April 20th. A very important verdict was rendered by the jury in the case of the killing against George Floyd. And, so a lot of people are absolutely surprised about the verdict. Some people are not. Everybody has mixed feelings. And it's hard to understand why sometimes, but that's what we're here to do. We're here to look at different perspectives and how it relates to other things. Now, I will tell you, this is an introductory podcast. The sergeant and I have spent countless hours talking about the events and how they are unfolding and what it means in the world at every different level. And so today we're probably not going to say too much that you haven't heard somebody else say somewhere on social media or something. But this will help us to dive in to other topics as we move forward. That will just blow your mind. So stick with us after all of this.
Yeah, they're all related. In our humble opinions, they are all related, and I guess you will see what we're talking about and as we move on with future podcasts. So yeah, the verdict. I'm just gonna say I was surprised that he was found guilty. I was surprised that he was found guilty on all three charges. I didn't think he was going to be found guilty on any of them. And that's just because of previous history when it comes to these type of events with police officers killing suspects. So I was surprised, but at the same time, I was also happy.
Mm-hmm.
Let's be real. Everyone's seen the video. If you haven't seen the video, you've been under a rock. I don't know where you've been, but George Floyd was in the process of being arrested, and they had the cuffs on him. He did resist arrest. It wasn't anything crazy resisting. He wasn't fighting with the police officers, that's for sure. But long story short, Derek Chauvin, whatever, however you enunciate that, put his knee on George Floyd's neck for a long duration of time, roughly about 10 or so minutes, maybe a little less. George Floyd was, kept screaming, "I cannot breathe." He said it about 25, maybe 30 times or so. And Derek Officer Chauvin, he stared into the onlookers' phones that were recording the events and just glossy-eyed, no remorse. And after so much time, he stopped talking, and he still remained on top of them. So, yeah. He has been found guilty. But like we said, much to our surprise, we had Representative Maxine Waters, right? Maxine?
Yes, she about ruined the whole thing with her
Yeah,
big
you
mouth.
take it away from there. Take it away from there.
So for me, I wasn't very surprised. I mean, the video, at least the video that was shown to the public, was very damning. Okay. Now people come back and they say, well, he was on drugs and he had a rap sheet. And I get it. Like, I will never be the person that turns George Floyd into a martyr, because number one, he didn't lay down his life willingly. That's a murder. But number two, it's not like he was this great man that was innocent and was killed. Like, we cannot liken him to MLK. We just can't. I understand his rap sheet is horrible, holding a gun to a pregnant woman's abdomen while she was being robbed. I heard a rumor that he held a gun to somebody's head while she was being raped. I'm not sure about that. I'd have to look at the rap sheet again. But so no, he's not a model citizen. And I would even say that he's not a good guy. And I would even say that the world is probably better without men like that. However, that's not what was on trial. Whether he had drugs in his system, what his history, his criminal history was, that's not what was on trial. What was on trial was that instance about lethal force, unreasonable force, and the contribution to his death. And some people say, well, it might have been the drugs that killed him. And I say, okay, that could have exacerbated the situation, but if he had gone about his day with all those drugs in his system as he was doing, who's to say that he wouldn't still be alive? So it's probably a combination of, yes, the drugs, but also the fact that a freaking knee was on his neck for 9 minutes or 10 minutes, whatever. And the most damning part of the trial was that Derek's knee remained there even after he stopped breathing. After he had no pulse, his knee remained there for two minutes or so. And so that just pretty much tells everybody in the jury, it's not like the whole time he had his knee there, it's not like he was subduing a threat, because he was dead for part of it. So I wasn't surprised. The only doubt I had in my mind was about a mistrial because of Maxine Waters, and not just because of her comments. It was almost like she was like threatening the jury members, if they don't do the right thing, then we're going to raise hell type of thing. And honestly, she was just saying what everybody else in society was thinking and what everybody else in society was doing. I mean, people were already organizing, people were already making threats like, if they don't do the right thing, the world is going to burn and all these things. So I feel like the man was guilty, and I'm glad he was convicted, but I do believe everybody, is entitled to due process. And I just believe in this case, it's absolutely impossible to have a fair trial. Impossible, right? Because there was no way to separate mob rule and the threats against society and the social fabric from the facts of the case. And that was the only thing that tugged at me as I'm thinking, I hope these jury members, they do convict him, number one, because they've seen all the evidence, they saw the recordings, they heard the facts, they heard the testimonies, everything, and they decided with
Yes.
Beyond a reasonable doubt, beyond a reasonable doubt, that he was guilty. You need a substantial amount of evidence to disprove the null hypothesis. And I was hoping that's what it was. And I was thinking, but they're humans too. And their names are easy to find. And, with all the entire world in such an uproar and it being so highly politicized, I was like, honestly, if I was one of them, I'd be scared out of my mind too, which would make me view things differently. So the only doubt was a mistrial in my mind. And who's to say that's actually still not going to happen? But that's where I stand on it. I'm one of those people that sees both sides, but at the same time, like, you look at it. But actually, I did hear that there was like an entire recording that was not given to the public. And that makes me question, why the hell not? Because that seems really shady, another political thing going on. I don't know if it would change their minds. Sergeant, I know that you've seen it. Do you think it would have changed minds?
Yeah, I've seen it. I don't know if it's so much that it would change minds. Listen, did he resist on that portion of the video that was not shown? Yes, they were trying to get him into the vehicle, into the back of the cruiser. He would not get into the back of the cruiser. They kept trying. They kept trying. He just kept resisting, and eventually just like, he's like, no, I want to sit down on the ground or something like that, or I want to sit down on the ground. So he said something along those lines. And that led to what happened with the knee on the neck. But that does not excuse the knee on the neck whatsoever. He was already cuffed. He wasn't going anywhere. There was how many? I don't even remember how many officers are on the scene now. One reason why is because of all of the other events that have just transpired in the last year since because it's been about a little bit right around a year, maybe a little bit, few more weeks past a year since this event has happened. So, gosh, we've just seen a lot of crazy things. But yeah, I'm not sure that it would have. I don't think it would have swayed the jury.
Okay.
It didn't sway me at all. Yeah. So, yeah, he resisted, but okay, you still had your knee on his neck for 10 minutes and he was unconscious and not breathing for like 2 to 3 minutes of it. So it doesn't change anything there, really. Not for me.
The whole thing was the video itself that everybody saw was very creepy to me. Obviously, the gut-wrenching part is when George cried out to his mother, who is not even alive. And for viewers,
his mother's not alive. And actually, his girlfriend at the time, his girlfriend testified that he was talking about her, which I thought was odd. I'm not sure if you knew about that.
I did not.
And what else is odd about this? What else is
there's a lot of things. Yes. So first of all, just from a psychological perspective and being witness to a lot of videos of police encounters that we see all the time, when Derek had his knee on his neck and he was screaming and there were onlookers. Now don't forget, there were people all around saying, you're killing him.
And children. I think the youngest one was 11.
And he just looked like stone cold in that camera and didn't make a single face. He didn't seem like he was scared. He wasn't being frantic. He just did not appear to be in fight or flight mode. He appeared to be strategic and calm, which was so scary.
Stoic look on him.
I know. It makes me feel like he's not very surprised about this encounter. And then I look at pictures of him on video and then his mugshot, and they don't even look like the same person. Obviously there's a resemblance, but if you actually kind of hone in on different physical features, I'm like, whoa, dude, did you have plastic surgery while you are in jail or something?
Different ears, different nose.
Yes. And then the other thing that's creepy is those two knew each other for over a decade. You know what I mean?
It's just together at the same club, at the same nightclub.
It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to me. It does not look like regular conflict between an officer and a suspect. It just doesn't add up. But that's just me going into a tailspin, or am I? We'll see. But that part doesn't make sense. However, assuming that there's no big conspiracy and Derek just did what he did,
wasn't MK Ultra.
I don't know, man, because he was zoned out out. It was
I
like,
heard things that Floyd was a Mason, a Freemason,
yeah.
which I don't know. I mean,
How do you know? Really? Like, yeah, exactly.
I mean,
I've heard that he's still alive. I've heard that he's a porn star, actually.
well,
People.
he did do a porn. I think his name in the porn was Big Floyd.
Okay.
Yeah, that
I
is it
never
is
bothered to look it up.
accessible. I went ahead and took the liberty, and when I found out about it, I was like, all right, let me just look into this, and it was definitely the same guy. Um, well, another red flag to me was the size of the casket for
Huh.
the funeral. The casket. So George Floyd was a big man. He was, gosh, I want to say he was like 6'4", 6'5", maybe. Um, his casket at the funeral it was small. Like, I don't think I would have fit in a casket. So that was very interesting to me.
See, we're already going. We're already heading in the direction that we think we're going to head in for future episodes. It doesn't make sense, but the video is, in my opinion, no pun intended, black and white. Whoever it was stepping on George's neck, premeditated or not, Derek or not, whatever or not, it was wrong. Yeah, he was on drugs. Okay, well, if that's the rule of law that we go by, then we should just go and put out every single drug addict. You know what I mean? That we can't go by that. We have to go by the rule of law. It has to be applied fairly.
Absolutely, 100%.
And so that leads into a good segue for, of course, with perfect timing, another incident that happened. What was it, yesterday? The very day, actually, it was before the verdict was rendered by the jury. It happened right before, I believe. And now that's what's hitting the scenes today. And on social media, I've seen
within an hour.
And isn't that really, really coincidental? Anyway, I've seen like a mixed result of commentary on social media about this. Now, mind you, I don't watch mainstream news anymore, and we'll get way into that later on as to why and the dirty things that I found out about like every single mainstream news channel out there. And I
watch news from other countries to get our news.
I just pretty much rely on my own self to find things out. But, even though I'm not watching news on TV because I don't want to be programmed and told what to think and told what to feel and told what the truth is, even though they're always bending it. Social media is not necessarily a great medium, but you do get to look at people's reactions. And it's what we're going to talk about next. There's a very like mixed set of reactions because this particular case is not like George Floyd. So take it away, Sergeant.
Okay. So this case, like Harris said, it's slightly different, but it's kind of the same. Because it's, no pun intended, black and white. So what had happened within an hour of the verdict being read yesterday, in Columbus, Ohio, police were called to a scene where the person making the 911 call was reporting that another person was attacking the group that they were with a knife. So the police showed up on the scene, and the officer that was primarily involved, the officer that fired these shots, Officer Nick Reardon, had his body cam on, and he shows up to the scene as the altercation is like unfolding. And the body cam footage was immediately released, which it almost never happens. Like day of, I really can't think of an instance where it happens day of. So as he's showing up to the scene, the victim, wow, do we call her that? Yeah, she is the victim of the shooting. Yes, of course. Is going to attack another person, and that person falls to the ground as that attack is happening. So she's trying to attack her. She does have a knife in her hand. That is confirmed. I've seen the video. And the other person falls to the ground. Now, as that is happening, there is a young lady to the left in like an all pink, like I want to say jumpsuit almost, or tracksuit or sweatsuit, and she immediately goes after the young lady in the all pink. And when that happens, the young lady in all pink ends up like backing into the car and falls like onto like almost like onto the windshield of the car. Okay. And this is where, it gets graphic here, folks. Like, the girl, the young lady, Ma'Khia Bryant was her name. The young lady that was killed, Ma'Khia Bryant, it all happens like in a flash, like, lifts up her arm, and she's going to stab the other girl. And the officer makes a split decision. And he fires what sounded like, I want to say 4 shots. And hits Ma'Khia. And Ma'Khia dies. She passed away. Yeah, so there were protests last night in Columbus. It wasn't protests like we've seen over the last summer. Where whole cities were burning. But who knows what it's going to be tonight, tomorrow, the next day. I don't know. We really don't know. And I don't know. It's just it's crazy to me because, people are already, calling for the officer's head. And to me, I'm like, I feel like he avoided, if he hadn't have done that, if he hadn't have shot her when he did shoot her, she would have stabbed the other girl. She was clearly about to stab her in the video. Like, it was clearly about to happen.
Yeah.
And she would have stabbed the other girl, and then we would quite possibly have 2 victims on our hands right now. 2 dead children, 2 dead teenagers on our hands right now. So in my opinion, it's sad. I am not happy that this young lady is gone, but it is, in my humble opinion, like, he made a split-second decision, and he had like literally maybe a couple tenths of a second to decide, and he made the decision. And I think, sadly, he made the right decision. Like, I don't want this young lady gone, but what do you do? He is there to protect and serve, and that's what he did. It was either shoot her or let her attack the other young lady, and then what? Shoot her after she attacks? Like, come on. Like, where's the line where it's in the sand where it's okay for him to cross it, because there's got to be a point where he can cross that line. And I think he was at that point, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, and like, I've got the video here right now. We can add it to, we definitely will add it to this so people can view it for themselves. But yeah, I just think that's, that's the best option. And then the video is pretty clear to me. It is pretty clear to me that, I'm looking at it right now. He comes up. Oh, she attacks her. Boom, she falls. He turns, draws his gun. She's going at the other girl. And boom, he shoots her. Wow, I didn't even notice this in the video. So he goes to attack the other girl. She goes to attack the other girl. The girl's falling, right? She falls to the ground. Okay. She falls. Someone comes up and kicks the other girl. It looks like he's kicking her.
Yeah, I heard it was one of the parents.
Yeah, he's kicking her. It's on the camera. He kicks her in the ribs. He's got his gun drawn. She's pulling up to stab the other girl. Yep. And the girl's on the hood, or on the windshield, like I said. Boom. He shoots her. So BLM has been outside. Last night was outside of Columbus State House. So I mean, gosh.
I think things like this, when BLM goes super hard for something like this, it really, really sort of unintentionally denounces what they stand for. And we'll go into what they stand for later, because there's lots of questions about that.
Subject a whole nother day right there. We will definitely touch on the topic of BLM and what we think they stand for, and if we agree with it. I'll just sit here and say right now, I do not agree with the organization as a whole. I used to. A year ago, I used to. I went to I went and protested multiple times. I still have my shirts that I got, my BLM shirts. I still have them. And then when I started finding out more about the founders of the organization as a whole, the three founders, one of them are, all right, so two of them are self-proclaimed trained Marxists and witches.
Literal witches, people. And they're on record saying it. And they say that the chants that they say.
Not for us. This is them saying that.
Yeah, they go on record saying that the chants that they put out in the streets are more than just a chant. It is, well, because they have these, I can't remember what particular region, but like these African tribal foundations of religion, where there's this summoning of what they say ancestors, the spirits of the ancestors, the dead. And so what they proclaim is it's more than just a chant. Every time somebody says it, they're sort of like bringing back the spirit of the dead, which I don't know where anybody else stands, but that to me, so with me, I try to look at everything in an unbiased manner, because I have my leanings, my political leanings, my religious leanings, all that stuff. But I feel like people can be so blinded by their own opinions that they completely ignore another side of the story. And that's a fear of mine. I don't want to be blindsided by another side of the story and feel and look like a moron. So I try to look at all different angles, even angles that I don't necessarily adhere to, because I remember saying this earlier, that aside from mathematics and physics, pretty much every other subject ground, it has a lot of subjectivity in it. Okay. Objectivity outside of those two different realms, pure objectivity outside of it does not exist, because you cannot have a view from nowhere. So if I say the grass is green, and I'm damn sure that grass is green because I'm looking at it and that shit is green, but then somebody comes around and they have different cone receptors, right, in their eye anatomy, they might see blue. And it's just as real for them as it is for me.
Right.
And that's a very simple example. Now we're talking about something 1,000 times more complex, like these. We're talking about racism and politicism and all these different things. So whenever anything gets politicized off top, I automatically don't trust it anymore. Doesn't matter what side it's leaning to. Don't care. So when COVID first came out, I was just like everybody else. I was locking down. I was, being really careful. And then I noticed how politicized it got. And then a couple of things just started to not make any sense anymore. And I started to trust in these quote unquote leaders even less and less and less. And I think a lot of people feel that way too. And then BLM, there was a time where I was also on board, absolutely, like Black Lives Matter, 100%. Because
clear, we are on board with the actual Black Lives Matter, like the cause. We just don't buy into the organization.
I don't. I mean, no, yeah. So I am anti-racism all day, every day. I know it exists. I'll never deny it. And I abhor it. So when I thought it stood for, I was all about it, learn more about it. I happened to be alongside learning more about what's going on with COVID and the vaccine patents and everything like that. And I just started to trust it less and less. I started to see people around me completely shift and change their entire personalities. So basically, when something becomes that politicized, I don't trust it anymore. And so that's what happens to these events. So I go on social media and I see a lot of people saying different things, which, I mean, with all due respect, to be honest, I mean, I go on there, I see Black Americans even saying like, no, this case in Ohio is not the same as George Floyd. She was yielding a knife, blah, blah, blah. We cannot, uphold her as a martyr, blah, blah, blah. I get it. And I do. And in my opinion, in this particular case, and this, Sergeant, I think everyone possible was at fault. Every person, every institution, every single person in society. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. I do. Because first of all, we're talking about a 16-year-old. Now, she's not a baby. She's not like a child, but she's not an adult. Okay? And they lack certain reasoning skills. But by the time someone's 16, they should understand cause and effect. You should understand, if I jump, I will come down. If this happens, then that. If they don't, then it's a failure of the schools, the parents. I understand with the foster parents that was the case. And with society, neighbors, everybody, for not, making that sort of correlation incredibly clear. Because by that age, you should know. Now, you may not be able to have the same insight as somebody who's 36, yes, but you should know. If I call, which by the way, she was the one that called the cops. If I call the cops and they show up and I'm holding a knife, common sense would dictate that I'm the one that looks like a villain. And I'm the one that's going to go down if I'm putting somebody else's life at risk in front of the cops. But I think society has failed her. I think her parents and foster parents failed her. I think the man that was kicking the girl in the head is a prime example of failing our children. School systems failed. If it was mental illness and she wasn't getting proper care, failed healthcare system. If it was, it's all of us. And I claim responsibility for it as well. And you should too, Sergeant. Everybody should, because there's no way. And you could say, I don't even know her.
I get and I agree with what you're saying. 100, I do.
No, you contribute to society, or you contaminate it. And even if you're all the way across the country, whatever way you interact with people, whatever way you interact with the world around you, you are contributing or contaminating the entire culture around you. And if a large collective of people do the same thing because it's trendy or it's acceptable, then everybody is going to be contaminated. And then these children, they don't know any better. And they're brought up thinking whatever it is they think, like consequences don't exist, whatever, and they're not getting the proper help, proper support, emotional support, all that stuff. So I honestly feel like it was a failure on everybody's part. The police officer, I'm not sure if he had any other choice. A lot of people were on there saying like,
de-escalated the situation. When he got there, it was no. So like the young lady's uncle, or sorry, cousin, Don Bryant, said the said the police officer had options. He says, in a quote, "I know there are de-escalation tactics that could have been used. You killed a teenage girl. That could have been avoided." Um, to that,
well, it could have been avoided if everybody else had stepped in much earlier.
Well, to that I say watch the video. I mean, the video is pretty clear cut and dry, in my opinion. I'm not trying to sound heartless here. It's just I don't see how he could have de-escalated it. Like, she was going with that knife at the other girl. It was about to happen. Like, I'll go ahead and I'm gonna send this to you right now, Hera. And I mean, just look at the link, and or look at the video. And I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it could have been de-escalated, but from what that video shows, there was no time for de-escalation. Like, what's
right.
he,
Well, when officers show up to a scene, they only know the information that they've been told on the way there from like the 911 call, maybe a possible rap sheet on anybody involved, but the primary source of information are the people at the scene.
Exactly.
So like, from what I understand, as soon as they pulled up, they had the 911 call. The operator probably said, "What's going on?" They pull up, and like one of the first things they see is her wielding a knife. And I've never been in a stabbing.
A knife. She was attacking with the knife.
I hear you. I've never been in a knife fight or anything like that, but from what I understand, the time it takes for somebody to reach their arm back with a knife and pull it forward into your flesh, it doesn't take very long. So like, it seems like there wasn't a lot of time to sit there and be like, "Hey, let's talk." You know what I mean? So that's why I'm saying, I don't know. I'm not a police officer. I do question their training, but I have no right to, because I'm not one. They put their lives on the line every day. I don't know much about the training. I sometimes do question it because I hear about.
I will say this. I will say this. When our soldiers are overseas in a conflict situation, there are rules of engagement, I guess we can call it. Yeah. So if they are fired upon, they have to be given the go-ahead to fire back before they can, unless they're going on a mission that's like weapons hot, unless it's like, some SEALs or some JSOC guys or some special forces guys, like going in on a mission that is, weapons hot, fire when ready, Otherwise, they can be out on patrol and fire can be opened. Someone can open fire upon them and they have to get permission before they fire back. That's when we're at war with another country. But police can open fire on our own citizens immediately. That is questionable to me. That is very questionable to me. Like, how does that work? That doesn't really make much sense to me personally. I don't know. Maybe.
Well, that's something that I did think that was good that came out of the George Floyd entire issue, because I think for a long time police have been held to a different standard. Obviously, they live a different life, but the law is the law. And I know most police officers are good and they're there and they're ethical and moral to do their job, protect and serve. But like, there are always, within every single job, ever, ever, ever. Bad teachers, bad doctors, bad lawyers, all that. There's bad police officers, but yet when somebody is a bad police officer and kills somebody in a department, it reflects on the whole department. So like there's incentive for the whole department to kind of try to defend it and cover it up. And so accountability is something I think that comes out of the George Floyd thing, whereas beforehand, maybe they wouldn't have felt so accountable. The one thing that I'm worried about though, is that police officers will be afraid to do what is necessary in like a situation like this, or something even worse. Like you come in, you bust into a domestic violence situation and a dude has his wife at gunpoint or something. Like I'm afraid that they come and if they know what they need to do, they'll be too gun shy to do it, because then people will be coming for their heads, even though none of those people coming for their heads, none of those people rioting have ever stepped a single step in their shoes. They're like talking from what they've seen on their screens. And the people that are rioting over this incident or protesting, or maybe they might riot in the future, I don't know, maybe they won't. But if they do, and I say this loud and clear, Sergeant, if they do, that should show everyone that their motives are actually not about what's moral and ethical and, you know, upholding the law. They're not. They made up their mind before any of this happened that they were going to find a reason to cause a ruckus. And so anything that presents itself is opportunistic. And even if it doesn't make sense, even if she was going to stab someone, the fact that she was a Black young lady, it gives them the green light, right? We get to ignore all the white people killed by cops, or all the cops killed by other people, or all the Blacks killed by Blacks, and everybody just killing each other. Get to ignore all that. As soon as the trigger's pulled and the person is Black on the other end, you know, then it's a green light. And so that goes to show you, like, okay, what are the actual motives with these organizations? They're not advocating for law and justice. They're advocating for what they're advocating for their feelings. It's their feelings. They want to be right and they want to cause a problem. They want to overturn whatever they can. And this particular case would not be the one to do it with. It really wouldn't. Because if I were one of the parents, no, let me just say this. Say the police didn't show up. And I walk up and I see somebody, another girl, 16-year-old girl, holding a knife, ready to stab my daughter. Believe you me, sweetheart, everybody listening, believe you me, without hesitation, I would shoot her. If you're about to stab my daughter, you're going down. If you're about to stab me, you're going down. And that's just what it is. If you don't like it, I don't care. That's just what it is. And so the police officer, you know, obviously had to make that decision. And this is not the case to, you know, cause a ruckus over. Now, should we ask questions about it? Yes, of course. Hold everybody accountable. Hold the foster parents accountable. Hold the cops accountable. Hold society accountable. Like, why the heck at 16 did this chick have a knife ready to stab someone, and she's the one that called the cops and didn't see how that would be a bad idea? Now, why did that happen? All of that nonsense happened before the cops even stepped foot on the scene. So if we're going to hold them accountable, we also need to hold everyone accountable. Yes, police accountability, let's do it. But we cannot do that without personal accountability, individual accountability. If you're not down to do that and you're always making excuses for whatever behavior happens, then you're actually not even about accountability. You're about opportunity. That's what it is. And so there's so much more to come. This is just the opening, barely, of Pandora's box. You know, a lot of the stuff you've probably heard already, but in future episodes, we're going to dive into things that you have never heard before. And I would be willing to stake my savings on that, and things that will make you completely change the way you look at the world, the way you look at everything, the way you look at anything on TV, the way you look at anything on
Give
social
me
media.
1 second. I just came across something. Give me 1 second. Give me 1 second.
Okay. So anyway, I don't know what he meant by give him 1 second, but we are at the stage where we need to go ahead and wrap up. And again,
Hera,
I just
got
want
Joe Biden saying this country is doomed, not just because of African Americans. Hera, listen to this, Hera.
Okay.
Rearing its head again. I can't tell you the answer to that, but I will play this clip for you. And it's a clip the mainstream media appears to be suppressing, maybe because it sounds about as racist as it gets from Joe Biden.
This country is doomed. It is doomed, not just because of African Americans, but because by 2040, this country is going to be minority white European. You hear me? Minority white European. And you guys are going to have to start working more with Hispanics, who make up a larger portion of the population than y'all do.
Now, folks, what in the world does that
What the fuck?
What? Oh my
Wow,
gosh.
folks. I think we should wrap it up with that right there. I feel like that is a good little ending point right there.
That is the most racist thing in my lifetime from a quote unquote president, if you believe he's actually
debatable. He said some other questionable shit.
No, I know he has, but that was egregious. Like that was just no, I don't like that at all. That was pernicious. I thought it would. I don't like that. Nope. I'm with it. No.
We're ready for that. See, I'm over here searching while we're doing our thing. Man.
Y'all, this is the tip of the iceberg. We're gonna dive into things that you've probably never even thought about, but once we talk about them, they'll never forget about. So stay tuned, stick with us. A lot more to come. And I think it's time to sign off. What do you think, Sergeant?
I agree, Hera. Thanks for joining me today, and I am glad to have you as a co-host with me. This is going to be a interesting journey. I think there will be some good times, and I think there are going to be some bad times. And particularly today was one of those bad times. But you got to talk about that shit. You can't just gloss over it. So yeah, thank you for joining me. Thank you for being this co-host with me, and thank you for creating this with me. Yeah, let's bring knowledge to the people. That's what the goal is. Let's do that.
Let's do it. I'm down. All right, y'all. Signing off.
Signing off.